Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Mountain Forums. My name is Jacob. I'm one of the content marketing leads here at Mountain, and I'm going to be your moderator for today. What's exciting about today's forum is that we have two very special guests joining us. They're here from QuickFrame's Maker community, a consortium of video production experts who have the skills to produce any kind of CTV ad for any industry or objective. In other words, if you need a video, they can make it for you. The maker community fuels Mountain's creative solutions, like creative as a subscription, which is why they are here to talk about something very near and dear to all of us at Mountain: creativity, and what marketers need to know about producing killer connected TV ads. Now, I'd like to introduce today's guests: Leslie Harderberg, owner and creative director of Harder Creative, and Jonathan Delgado, executive producer and creative director at Brighter. Leslie, Jonathan, tell us a little bit about yourself, your company, and how you got started as a maker.
Hello, so excited to be here. My name's Leslie, as you said, and I run a video production company called Harder Creative. My background was in screenwriting in film school, and it led me to working in children's media and in animation and all that. And from there, I decided to start my own thing, which is now 10 years old. We are a small production company that really focuses on commercial. And we've been working with QuickFrame since pretty much QuickFrame's beginnings. So have created a lot of CTV content as well as other types of creative video production. But so excited to be here.
Hi, and I'm Jonathan Delgado. I have also a production company and a little video agency here in Los Angeles, California. I started in music in New York City and was quickly drafted into the world of big ad agency production and spent many years producing ads for Nikes and Cokes and Pepsis and all of that, until all of a sudden, running my own little editing company in Santa Monica, this crazy thing happened called social media, and I loved it. I loved it immediately. All of the brands I was working with at that time, they were hot to make content for social, but they just didn't know how to do it, and they didn't have the resources to do it because the pool of creators they were working with were big, fancy, sometimes Academy Award-winning directors. So I loved that opportunity, and I jumped on it and formed Brighter Creative Content, where we produce that kind of content for CTV, direct advertising. We do social. And when we found Mountain and QuickFrame, I guess it was about 3 years ago, it was like an instant match. Like their approach and how they kind of look at the process and was exactly what I had been doing. And I knew that that was great for us, and it has been.
Fantastic. Thanks, y'all. Now, before we kind of get into our discussion, I just wanted to remind everyone joining us today that we will have time for a Q&A at the end of today's session. So if you do have a question for our guests, please feel free to drop that into the Q&A chat you should see on your screen. All right. Now, let's get this conversation started. So before we jump into kind of the nitty gritty of ads and advertising, I kind of want to zoom out a little bit. So for those in our audience who are maybe a little removed from the world of creatives and creativity, and especially considering that both of y'all have, an artistic background, either screenwriting or music, and of course, everything that you're doing with QuickFrame, how would you describe your own personal creative process, that method or approach for how you come up with the ideas to make an effective video ad, or effective video in general, I should say? Leslie, let's start with you.
Yeah, I always like to answer this. You get this a lot when you work in a creative field. And I always like to say I'm probably the least creative person, that if you're imagining someone sitting in a field, looking at the trees and the butterflies for inspiration, then you will not find that in my process. I'm very pragmatic, and I really think decision making is really the heart of creativity. I feel like you have to be good at making decisions and following that decision and seeing where it goes. I find that a lot of people that are really tied up in wanting to make something truly original, or they're really trying to make something perfect and they're trying to find the idea, they're often paralyzed because they're not just throwing some ideas out there, making some decisions and seeing where it leads them. So with me, and when it comes with making CTV, a lot of times with clients, I'm like, okay, if we have nothing, if we're in a vacuum, where do we want to put our characters? Are they in a car? Are they in a grocery store? You know, what problem are we solving? And how are we making decisions, solving that problem? And so you just kind of see where the story leads you. So it's a very unsexy process, but I find that I can get things done a little quicker than some other quote unquote creatives.
I guess I'm a little different. I guess I'm more kind of touchy-feely.
Yeah,
It's
you're in the field.
me. Yeah, for me, it's, well, I don't know if it's a field. I mean, it might be in somewhere else, but for me, I like to really get into the feeling of what it is I'm making before I get into the nitty-gritty. You know, for me, it's like, particularly with CTV, like, what is this brand? Like, what do they make me feel like? Like, when someone buys from this brand, like, what is that about? Like, do they feel powerful? Does that make them feel like that? Or does it make them feel part of a community? Or does they, so I like to get that in me. And then from there, I kind of get into that nitty gritty. You know, that's like the next step is like, okay, so now let's look at this actual brief. Like, what is it we need to distill? What is the messaging? You know, what are the bullet points I got? We need to say this, we need to say this. And then through that first lens, I find I can, you know, start ideating. And I agree with you, like that blank page is your enemy. Like I just write everything. I write 100 ideas down and most of them stink, but then they don't stink. And then you start getting some good ideas and then you start messing with the script and, well, what if she started the line? Or what if there was no lines? Or what if we don't even need anyone to speak? And you just start ideating and ideating. And if you're working with a great brand, you know, you can get them included sooner and say, okay, here are three, and that's usually what we do. Here are three totally different approaches, but there may be different approaches, but they're still the heart of the brand and they're still hitting what's important. I mean, I don't know if that answers, that's kind of my creative process.
No, I think that's great, and it really does sort of lead in and honestly answer kind of one of my next questions, which was really kind of how you like sort of integrate that creative process into a CTV ad, and I feel like you kind of touched on that of like really taking that brand's like direction and really looking for ways that you can kind of expand from there. And Leslie, on something that kind of resonated with me from what you said is like that idea of making decisions being like a very important part of the creative process that maybe doesn't come on the top like five when people think about it. For me personally, like from a writing perspective, as that's like the big artistic outlet for me, is making those decisions helps you come to that conclusion faster because it's the idea of like killing your darlings. Creatives are always going to have those things that we love, but usually to get us through there, we have to make a decision on how much we love that thing. Do we love it more than something else? And then having, a collaborator in there, either creatives or brands, like it really does help kind of solidify and make that process, even smoother and help you understand like which darlings you're going to be able to keep. Um, so before we kind of continue to move through this conversation, I would love for either one of you to kind of tell our audience, because anyone who maybe is new to TV advertising, they might look at TV advertising as this big kind of imposing, mysterious thing. So could you give everyone like a brief overview of what the process of making a TV ad really looks like?
Sure, I'll do it. Um,
Right.
I mean, it's funny, like most creative things, and it is a creative thing, it's great to systematize it. It's great to have really defined steps in the process and productions like that. I mean, which we traditionally have a development phase, and we go into a pre-production phase, and we go into a production phase, and then we go into a post-production phase. Now, there's a lot of sub things within those groups, and they are what they sound like. You know, development is what are we making? Okay, we're making CTV ads. We're making three of them. These are the points we want to hit. And then we get into pre-production. We have a script now. We have a concept. We know we're going to have two actors, one location, a dog, and whatever we're going to have. And we begin us putting things to those property. Here are some actors we consider. Here are some locations we consider, et cetera, et cetera. And once we have all that sorted out, we go into production and we go shoot. We shoot the ad. It's a fun day usually, and then we get into editing, and that's where you get to actually see that idea. It's that big arc from A to B, from that ideation idea to like, oh, there it is. And we see the first ad and we go back and forth and make adjustments and change the voiceover, or maybe we start it here instead of there. And that's the process.
Great. Well, I mean, that's a perfect brief overview, and obviously, it's going to have plenty of more things that kind of go into that. But that really is sort of that pre-production, production, post-production phase, and everything that comes in it. So now that we kind of got that overview out of the way, I want to go a little deeper on some of the specifics, like specifically around what roles marketers should or could play within this process. To start more broadly, what do you generally like a client to know before you even get into like the pre-production phase of an ad, in order really for them to be the best collaborators?
Yeah, I mean, you said it with the word collaboration, is that this really is a collaboration, right? So they're not saying, here's our product, and we're not just going off and making something and saying, here's a video with your product in it, right? The goal is that no one is surprised at the end. But on the other side of that, you also don't want the agency or the product or the brand to be really tightly controlling all of the creative, right? It's a collaboration, so it's a back and forth. And so along the process, I always want to make sure the brand knows that we want your feedback, and we have built in all of these checkpoints throughout the process to ensure that we are aligning with your message, we're aligning with how you want to connect with your audience, and we understand your brand. So throughout the process, I always build in a lot of checkpoints to make sure we're not moving into casting until we really are aligned on the script and what the script is saying. We're not moving into locations, and we're making sure that you're signing off on art direction, you're getting mood boards, you're getting costuming. So you really know what we are shooting day of, and there's no surprises there. And then the same thing in post production. I always build in lots of checkpoints to make sure that they're reviewing things before we get too deep, right? So they're seeing a cut that's pretty polished, but it's still what we consider, the rough cut, so that they can weigh in and we can collaborate. So I think it's important for brands to know that it is a collaboration, that they're not going to see something shiny and polished right from the get go. But that is because we don't want those surprises at the end, right? We want to create something together.
That's great. Kind of building off of this idea, in marketing spaces, we often talk about sort of the ideal creative partner, someone that can, have this X, Y, and Z skills, and they can produce an ad in a set number of days, et cetera. But to kind of flip this idea around, as a creative yourself, how would you describe the ideal client?
I think Leslie said collaboration, and that's usually the single most important aspect. Someone who's really straight and honest and can connect and collaborate on a real personal level, on a real, these are things I'm good at, these are things I'm not good at, help me with this. I have a strong opinion on that. That's where it really works. I mean, I guess above all, what I really love is a client who really knows their product. Like they've been there for a minute and they've got an idea about the kind of stuff that's worked in the past, the kind of stuff that doesn't work, just to streamline things. I love that. And I also really like it when someone really values the pre-production. I find a lot of clients really excited about the shoot day, and that's awesome. It can be really fun. But for me, the magic actually happens in the beginning, in the ideation and the scripts. That's where for me, the big decisions are made. And I always joke that like production day should be the most boring day of the process because everything's been sorted out. We're gonna have fun. Don't kid me. There's craft services and everyone's, it's a lot of fun, organized chaos. But that beginning part, that's not clicking boxes. That's really where I love clients to get on board and work together.
Oh yeah, I feel like those first initial conversations are just so important. It's where not only are you like sort of gathering information, but you're also, starting to build that collaboration. You're building that language and that communication that, makes them feel comfortable maybe coming into a space that they're kind of unaccustomed to or new to. And, of course, for you to be able to have all of the information and all of the support that you need to be able to, produce exactly what they're wanting that can be effective and successful. Um, so to get a little bit even more specific, we likely have a lot of marketers joining today's forum who have never been on any kind of video production set or shoot before. Now, obviously, marketers don't need to be on set, but when they are, what should they know so that they're actively, helping the production?
Oh, I like the way Jonathan said it should be the most boring day, because typically before we have a client come on set, I always let them know, like, this is not the day to get creative and add new shots. We are typically shooting for a very long day, and we have dialed that schedule down to the minute. So I always say, if you are on set and you have this great idea, right? You want the shot where the dog jumps over, the table or something crazy. We could, in theory, add your shot, but you have to be prepared to take away something else. So you have to be prepared to kill another darling on the set. You have to be prepared to adjust. But typically, we are just refining and giving notes on set to the things that we have already set in stone that we are shooting that day. So that usually means, no new lines or new actions, definitely no new lighting setups, as that can cause some problems. So yeah, I mean, it is a really fun day. Like Jonathan said, it's usually the most fun, but it's not really a day to sway from the plan that we've already approved and locked before we ever got on set.
I had
Yeah,
some.
I mean, in some. Oh, please go ahead.
I mean, I never forget there's this great director named Tony Kaye who made this keynote speech at the AICP Awards, and he stood up there and he held a sign about this, and he said, "Trust."
Mm.
Trust is a big part of the production day. I mean, just recently I that was on set on a QuickFrame project, and you know what? The first couple takes from the actors, they weren't very good. Like they were kind of bad, and the client was like trying to rewrite the script on me, and that was a trust moment. It was like, no, she's got those lines in her head. We have to work on this, and we will get there. Trust us. Everyone here knows what they're doing. We'll get there. So that's kind of the thing, trust in the system. Everyone there, if they're on our sets, they know what they're doing. They've been doing this for a really long time. And I understand that that's a big leap for someone who's never been there before, and it's hard to do, but it's real.
Yeah,
Jumping
in
off,
some ways.
sorry.
Oh, please,
We
please.
have so many thoughts
No,
about.
this is exactly what. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I jumping off of that. There are going to be sometimes like a comedy script where we want to have a little bit of improv, or we want to have, some of those authentic lines and see what happens. But again, that's built into the plan, right? So typically, if I know a client wants to play a little bit and they want the talent to give some options, we will build in, 30 minutes of improv time, but that's after we've already felt like we got it. We got that take that's usable. That is the line that was scripted and approved. Then we build in those times to play. So it's not that there's no time to play, but again, it's planned. It's thought through before.
Yeah, in some ways, it feels like marketers really need to view like the production and all of this in the same way that they view like the campaigns that they build themselves that are have nothing to do with video. Like you do so much planning, you do so much preparation, you create these campaigns, and then once it's time to launch, it's usually a little too late to start trying to make big monumental changes that might cause things that you have to change throughout the entire thing. So there's almost like a cascade effect that people need to remember about that. I think the inherent work that they do, there's a one-to-one connection of just how these sort of projects come along and work. um, all right, so now I kind of want to shift gears a little bit again, and really let's get more into talking about creative itself. Now, I'm not asking either of you to drop any names or anything like that, but what are the types of TV ads that really resonate with you personally? Like, and what was it really about the creative itself that helped make that impact on you?
I mean, I like ads that make me feel like, I like ads that are optimistic, I guess, but that just ultimately make me feel something for them. I mean, I like ads that are clear. I hate things that are vague. I want to know who the ad's for. I want to understand what they're doing, why they're here, how they can help me. So, clarity, optimism, feelings, those are the things that matter to me without dropping any names, the brands who are doing that well.
Mm. Yeah, I'm really drawn to humor myself. And I want to be surprised. I feel like it's hard not to drop names, but I do feel like those original Old Spice ads and the Dollar Shave Club ads, like we all kind of remember the first time that we watched that, and they stuck with us. And a lot of people have kind of tried to redo that same sort of thought. But I do feel like it just felt like something fresh, and it immediately got your attention. So I typically am drawn to those ads, but like Jonathan said, the sentimental ones, the ones that are pulling on my heartstrings, are really the ones that are telling those universal stories of love and just those human stories, love, death, romance, like those things that we all connect to. I think that, a brand I'm not going to name, but rhymes with schmoogle, does a really good job of that, right? Like those search bar ads that are they're very simple. They're not doing a whole lot from a production standpoint, but they are doing a whole lot in a messaging standpoint because they're talking about the human experience. And I just feel like we all connect with that. So those are kind of my two things. I want humor, I want to be surprised, but I also want that emotional connection.
And that emotion can also be powerful. Powerful and conquering. I mean, all those things get into the feels as well. I'm working on a project which I'll be ideating this afternoon. That's for a software tech brand, and there I did my initial creative process where I this morning, and it's like it's making entrepreneurs feel like they can conquer the world. That's what their feeling is, and so it's all kinds of feels.
It's actually really funny that both of you mentioned this, and we'll get to this in a second and show the audience. But the things that you said resonate with you in TV ads. Knowing both of your work, like that's represented. This emotional connection, this humor. Like y'all put y'all put what you enjoy and appreciate into practice, and I think that it's just like a really cool thing to see. So on a kind of similar note, is there anything you think that really all CTV ads should include to be effective and or successful? Like for instance, if our viewers after today's forum are evaluating the ads that they are currently running, what would you say are some of the essential elements that they absolutely need to have?
For me, it's really right away, you need to get into what is the problem that you're solving. And this is something that I reiterate a lot in the writing process with brands. It's something that I want to know before I even begin is what is the big problem that you're solving? What is the felt need that you're answering? And you should be hitting that immediately in the ad, that the customer should be connecting with that, and especially with CTV because it's different than linear. It's different even than social, right? It's very trackable, like social, right? So it's a very targeted marketing, but it's on a TV, right? So you really do want to be able to move them from the TV to their phones to look at your product, and to be asking questions and to investigate it more. So that's quite a big jump. So to me, I always am telling brands like it's really important to grab them immediately and make sure that you're doing that call to action. Make sure that you're kind of showing them how they can get to you, how they can find you.
This is a really great question. I like this question a lot, and that was a super duper answer because that jump from from the TV to action is really what it's all about. And yes, a good call to action, and yes, very, very clear. But I wanted to add, it's also sometimes important to remember what you're not saying. There's a huge tendency to jam pack a lot of information in a 30-second ad. And I find more often than not, it doesn't serve the purpose of that jump. The idea is we're trying to get them to take action, and too much information doesn't get them there. It leaves little curiosity. It sometimes muddles the message. So that's really what I wanted to add about that, is just clarity. And that what's the term everyone likes now, top of funnel, but it is really true. We're trying to get them to move, to take action with simple, strong messages.
Yeah, it's interesting, the idea of like trying to encourage curiosity. I feel like that's something that you definitely see in like films and even in like books and other sort of forms of media, where the hook to get them to continue to ask questions and be curious, like that curiosity can really sort of do that. And in some ways it's like what you don't put in there can also be the thing that maybe pulls them into sort of the message, because they now are asking themselves like, what is this? So all very, very great great answers. All right, now, so you both brought a few examples of some of the work that you produced with QuickFrame that you've been particularly proud of. So I want to go through each of these one by one, and then you can just give us a little background on the project and why you selected it. So let's take a look at those ads now.
We're all here because our homeowner discovered
RMR Solution products.
The bathroom used to be my domain. Now, the cleaning tools of professionals are in the hands of everyday people.
I thought I was hiding my disgusting self out of sight. With RMR 86, I don't stand a chance.
You don't have to hide around here, Molt.
Hi. Okay. RMR's botanical disinfectant makes me feel like they don't even want me.
Say goodbye to unwanted house guests and clean like a pro. Find us at these retailers and rmrsolutions.com.
I do love that ad. All right, so Leslie, I believe this one was from you. So why did you choose this ad?
Yeah, I chose this because it's a great example of a real collaboration between me and the client. This is one that changed a lot over the course of the production. They came with scripts. They wanted to make one 30-second ad, but they had about 15 pages of script. And it featured characters that were personified versions of the problems that they were solving, which I thought was really fun. And I love getting weird. I love doing comedy. So I was like, yes, but they built all these different scenes around each character. So, my first question was, well, do you want to focus on just one product? And the answer was no, we want to show all of our products. So my idea was like, how can we get all of these characters in one space quickly? And so I came up with the idea of doing a group therapy scene and cutting back and forth between the customer using the product and the different problems, talking with each other in a different setting. And it was a lot of fun. And I think both us as creatives, we had a great time on set, and the client was so happy with the result, because in the end, they got to have their idea come across. They got to have these personified versions of each problem, but we did it within 30 seconds. And I think it ended up being a nice, clear, concise message. But also, just going off of what I was saying earlier, because they wanted humor, we did in this one a lot of time for improv with the talent. So we had some great comedic talent. The guy that plays Grease he's one of my favorite cast people to hire. He's so funny. So I knew that he would bring the funny. So I made sure that we had a lot of time allotted for him to riff off of it. And we ended up getting so much great stuff that the client asked for some cut downs from the shoot, some different variations, because we had some room to play. So it was a fun one.
Nice. And I feel like what you said about where the sort of the group therapy like idea came from. I feel like that's a perfect example of how a creative idea can solve sort of like a brand marketing problem. Like how do we include all of these different value props for our product or all of our different products in general in a way that's, creatively satisfying. And I feel like what you came up with here is the perfect example of that. All right, so let's go to the next ad.
What is this stuff?
Sugar. Hiya Kids Daily Multivitamin is everything you need and nothing you don't. Made with over 15 essential vitamins and minerals. No sugar, no artificial dyes, just goodness. Hiya comes with a refillable bottle and stickers to decorate. Then get fresh refills sent monthly on a pediatrician recommended schedule. Join more than 1 million parents who already switched to Hiya and get 50% off your first order.
All right, Jonathan, tell us a little bit about why you selected this ad.
I like this ad because it's a really simple idea with a lot of information in it. And I thought it was successful at distilling all of these product attributes in 30 seconds while keeping that great, simple vibe to it. It feels like, their key product attribute is it's a healthy vitamin for kids. And the assumption in the space is that kids won't eat it because it doesn't taste good. So that was what we needed to leap over. Most kids' vitamins is covered in sugar. Now, what parent wants to give their kid a vitamin coated in sugar? And that was that opening shot. What is this stuff? And we see sugar. So it really, I thought, although it has a lot of information in it and a lot of language and a lot of product attributes, it stays really true to the simple idea of, it's vitamins shouldn't have sugar in them, and kids will respond to them positively.
Yeah, and I feel like that really speaks to sort of the directness that you're talking about before, and keeping that message, clear. I feel like this is a very, straightforward story that someone can follow, and I think it also to the relatability that you have in this ad for, especially for anyone who has a child or even someone like me that only has a nephew. Like you see this and you do feel that, sense of relatability that helps breed that emotional connection that someone would really have for an ad like this. And I think it's just very, very successful, and as you mentioned, like packs in a lot of information without it feeling like it's overloading the audience. All right, so let's jump into our next example.
You're not just a cat lover or a grandma who knits or a fan of fermenting or a casual pickleball player. You're amazing, and you could holiday like this, or you could make amazing with Zazzle. From holiday cards to home decor, shop a wide range of products designed by our community of creators and customize pretty much anything, because everyone deserves a holiday as unique as they are. Make holidays amazing. Shop now at Zazzle.com.
So this
All right,
is
Leslie.
part of a series of videos, and this is the montage of that video. So each of these characters sort of had their own hero moment too, and then the montage, I think, was something that came. They targeted later after they'd showed each of these individual stories. But this shoot was just a ton of fun, and this client is a ton of fun. So they wanted, like, their ideal customer is a creative person, is a person who likes to get a little weird, and usually they're the people that are shopping on Zazzle are the people that are customizing socks and doing and purchasing some interesting, customized things. So we got to get weird with them. And so my favorite part of this production was really the art direction and getting to have fun with the art direction and bringing in different people to play that role and kind of paint the scene of the kombucha maker and the knitter. And Zazzle in general, they're like, go play, have fun. So I think I put this one in there because it was kind of an ideal situation with the client where they had a really clear brand voice and they really understood what their brand was and who their customer was, but they really let me take the storytelling risk and kind of create these fun, unique characters. And so together, I think we came up with something that I'm really proud of.
Yeah, no, and I think that this is just a really incredible example of kind of like the quality of creative that you can, produce through QuickFrame. And I think it also just really has a clear personality and has a clear like vibe, for lack of a better word, that I think is just very resonant. And as someone who has a cat, like clearly I have a little bit of a love of this ad specifically. Just you always love to see cats in some creative.
Okay, that
But
was
speaking,
the third cat we
oh,
had to get that day because cats are not easy on set. I'll just say that. I also love cats, but we knew that cats, they don't always do what you want. So we had two backup cats, and that was the third cat, and we got it though.
it doesn't surprise, as someone who owns an orange cat, does not surprise me one bit that they maybe aren't the biggest team players and collaborators on set. But speaking of animals on set, let's jump to our final video example.
Pets make us better people. They remind us that we're capable of more than we think we are, and that kindness makes a difference. They're there for us through it all. So when it comes to the ones you love, let Spot Plans protect you. Spot pet insurance plans can pay up to 90% of vet bills at any vet in the US or Canada. It's no wonder Spot is America's favorite pet insurance. Go to spotpet.com to get a free quote today.
All right, Jonathan, bring us on home. What do you love about this ad?
I picked this ad because this was an example of a really extended pre-pro and development process. This brand really had an open playbook to how they wanted to approach this asset. And we showed them a myriad of ideas. We actually started with funny ideas, and then we went to this more sentimental idea. So it was a great example of and I'm not showing that here because I can't show the work we didn't produce, obviously, but it took a long time to get to this for them. And this was a super high performing ad. It really worked for them. I'm really proud of the opening line, pets make us better people. I think that, like what I was saying before about like the brand and why does someone get pet insurance and why, how do you connect with that person? I think pets make us better people gets there. I think that's ultimately why I chose this ad, because I really like that line.
No, yeah, and I think it's great, and I think what this really that I feel like what that line kind of signifies is just how well you and the brand, of course, knew your target audience. Like you understood that for pet owners, whether it's a dog or a cat, like that idea of a pet making you a better person is just very resonant and relatable. And I think it's likely one of the big reasons why this ad was so effective and successful is because of that, because all of us can see ourselves in it. And I think that that's as important in a film or a TV show as it is in an ad. Honestly, it might even be more important by the sheer nature of an ad's function. So yeah, that was we really loved this ad, and the Zazzle ad are two of our favorites around here at QuickFrame. So thank you for bringing them on and letting us show them to our audience. So this has been just a really incredible conversation. But before we transition into the Q&A, do you have any final thoughts about CTV creative or even just video in general that you'd like to share with our audience?
Jonathan, you want to go?
Oh, okay, sure.
Go for it.
A general, like, you mean like the future, or you mean like?
Yeah, I mean, if there's anything that, we haven't maybe touched on today that you think you would like our audience to take away from this conversation,
Yeah,
that'd be
sure.
great. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the sky's the limit these days. I mean, with the new technology coming in, and of course AI, it's interesting that all the ads we showed today were live action ads. There's a lot of ways to skin the cat just to get the cats in the conversation. And I love that about where we are right now. I mean, I think you got from me in this conversation that I'm kind of a brand guy, and I kind of, so for me, I don't really think that how we get ads produced and the technology we use to do it is important. I think what's important is connecting your brand, your ideas, and the value you bring to some other person is what's important. So, as we move forward, I really say the sky's the limit. I mean, I'm just blown away by what we're able to do these days, coming off of a set. I mean, that first ad, we used AI to fix all kinds of little things that you would never guess you could have did 5 years ago.
Mm. I think my final thought would just be, don't play it safe. I
Mhm.
feel like, this is a time to take some risks and some storytelling risks and some visual risks. And that is really the fun of getting to produce CTV creative. So for marketers interested in this platform, yes, be clear about your message. Yes, know the problem you're solving, but be ready to play and take some risks and yeah, go out there and kind of see what sticks with your audience.
I love that. I'm going to glom onto that and say, this is like from a book I've been reading, it's like your competition isn't your competition. Your competition is the noise. It's all the bombardment of media everyone has. So if you're not standing out, you're not there. And that is really what's important, what Leslie said, and I completely agree.
Yeah, and I definitely think the playfulness, the risk taking, like when someone sees a brand doing that, that stands out because it's unlike anything that you might be seeing, elsewhere in your ad breaks. And those are the things that I think creative helps with and creativity helps with is that once you have a lot of creative voices in the room alongside all of the other maybe more technical marketing voices too, that collaboration is really sort of the secret sauce of what kind of makes a really effective CTV ad. Well, thank you so much for both of you for this discussion about creative and connected TV ads. I really hope that everyone in the room today joining us feels, more than a little inspired to start crafting some killer ads for themselves, or with QuickFrame. So it does look like we have some questions from the audience. So let's just jump right in. So the first question we have here is there anything I should know if I want to reuse my connected TV ads on social channels like Instagram or TikTok?
I would say that they're two different platforms, right? So you do need to approach them differently. Yes, we can take what we've made for CTV and we can cut it into an aspect ratio for social, but they're two different mediums. So you do need to talk a bit different to your audience. And so I always recommend, you know, because we typically have one shoot day, we use a lot of the existing creative, but we kind of open and we grab attention differently with social. I think it needs to be a little bit more direct with social, a little bit more authentic with social, right? Because they're seeing real stories and they're used to seeing more reality in a real space. So often a really polished ad is not going to play as well on a phone when someone's scrolling. So a lot of times we'll do a shoot and we'll create some UGC footage within that shoot and intercut it with our footage to create something for social so that it still works on that platform, because just it's not always a direct translation.
Yes.
Yeah, please go ahead.
No, just yes. I mean, on that Hyatt project that we played the video for, we produced 2 CTV assets and 7 social assets in that 2-day shoot. Because Leslie's right, they don't overlap all that much. I mean, if you're producing for TikTok in particular, it's very specific.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the TV screen comes with a specific amount of like creative expectations. Like you expect it to be a certain specific way, but when it comes to social, something different, something more authentic, clearly is resonant for that sort of platform and channel. So really, it seems like it's about understanding the platform and kind of what people expect when they come to it. And honestly, you mentioned UGC, and it seems like in some ways that the UGC quality of social, of TikTok and the Instagrams of the world, those honestly seems like they would perform even better on social because of the authenticity that comes from seeing those sort of user generated style videos. All right, so we have another question here, and this is really more towards like the different types of brands that you work with. So obviously, the ones that we really looked at here were more sort of consumer B2C focused. But for those brands that are maybe a B2B brand that have a product or service that they're selling to another business, is there any considerations that they should know, any different approaches that they should take compared to, say, a more consumer adjacent product?
Actually have a long history doing B2B, so I feel like I start on this. I mean, B2B is a very different animal, generally speaking, and the reason is not because of the productions, it's because of the delivery, how B2B is typically distributed. If you're using CTV for B2B, which could be very, very successful, you generally who you're speaking to more specifically. That arc from A to B is more defined. So it's an opportunity to really drill down and since you are selling to a very specific customer profile, go there, go all the way there. That would be my 2 cents about B2B, particularly as it relates to CTV.
So especially with B2B, like there's oftentimes, because the products are maybe a little bit more complex, there's a lot more education that comes to help the creative team sort of understand really what the product does, what uses it serves, what it's solving. From your perspective, and this doesn't need to be B2B, this can be B2C as well. But what would be the best way for a brand to help the creative team really understand the product and sort of the individual like consumer persona that they're going for? And in other ways, I feel like I'm kind of butchering this question. What's the best way to enable a creative team to understand the product and the persona even better?
I'm like, more give me as much as you can. I love reading through brand bibles if they have like their target person, their target audience kind of written up, if they have messaging do's and don'ts. I'm just like, give me everything so I can kind of get a crash course in your brand 101. But on outside of that brain dump, I'm like, give me everything you have. I usually, on top of that, want the 3 to 5 things that you have to have in this video. What are the 3 to 5 takeaways, value props you need the customer to know in this video? So I am always like, give me as much as you can, all the links, all the videos, all the copy, but then also, can you pare down for me what you need said in this video? What are the have to haves? And what are the maybe nice to haves that you want me to know about, but maybe don't necessarily need to come across in 30 seconds?
All right. So it looks like we are getting a lot of really great questions, but I want to make sure that we don't run over time and we're good on that. So let me go through one or two more questions. So here's another one. So when it comes to script writing, do you have an outline or a methodology you rely on? I think really with this question, because obviously screenwriting, there's specific formats and all of that kind of go into it. Is it really the same thing with advertising, or what can really, provide in a script format for you?
There's absolutely formats. That generally happens, but there's a beginning, middle, and end, obviously. But I'm a big believer, and I don't think the work I showed today shows this very well, but all that formatting is there to forget. I mean, ultimately, we need to, get noticed and get our message out. And, script writing, you have to know the formatting, you have to know the process to not listen to it or to listen to it, depending upon the project. The two projects I showed you are not that way. They absolutely start with, what many people might call a hook. They start with a clear opening and then have a big messaging section and then end with a clear CTA. But that doesn't mean it has to be that way.
Yeah, I mean, because I do have a screenwriting backdrop, I am like, what do my characters want? What's getting in the way of what they want? How are their wants and needs conflicting? And what's interesting at the game of writing commercials is that you have to do that very quickly because you want to make sure that you hear the brand in the first 5 seconds, right? So the game is, how can you establish someone that's going after something the wrong way and get to the brand and then start showing them going after it with your solution. So I do keep a formatting in my mind usually when I'm writing scripts, because you're really hooking the audience and you're hooking them with a storytelling problem, right? And you kind of show the brand as quickly as possible before you backtrack and then show how it solves it. So yeah, that's typically the format that I follow when I'm writing.
All right, so we have time for one more question, and this kind of really builds off of a bit of the discussion that we started with the B2B question that was really about kind of service-based ads. So obviously the examples that we shared were all very like product-focused ads. But what would you say advice-wise for someone to kind of know that they like about advertising specifically for a service, maybe something that's not a physical product or less ephemeral? Is there really any difference in terms of the creative and how you sort of explain that product versus explain that service versus maybe explaining more of a product?
No.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't
No.
think so. I don't think it's different.
Yeah, hey, no is a great answer because it just means that we already know what we already know. So yeah, it sounds like there's really not too much difference when it comes to the product or the service that you're being presented with. They all have the similar sort of flow of like the information that you need to provide and making sure that you are conveying that information in a way that is both creative and compelling to the audience. All right. Well, we are pretty much at time. It has been a phenomenal conversation. So thank you again, Leslie and Jonathan. And really, thanks to all of you for joining us for today's forum. Now, if you would like to work with talented video makers just like our guests today, please scan the QR code that's on your screen to learn more about Mountain's suite of creative solutions like QuickFrame and the Maker community. Now, if you were so glued to your screen that you didn't take as many notes as you would have liked, hey, that's what post-show emails were invented for, and you will receive one with a recording of this session in the near future. Now, if you enjoyed this discussion and want to watch more like it, check out our back catalog of on-demand events at mountain.com/webinars, where you'll also be able to find out when we have our next session coming up. All right, thank you so much again for joining us, and we'll see you at the next forum.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.